Okay, so here's where things are going to get interesting. I woke up this morning to a YouTube video because, I fell asleep with autoplay on. For some reason, the fun little tidbits of the usual, where YouTube shuts you down for, being idle for too long, didn't kick off for some apparent reason. Not the first time I've had that happen, by the way. Um, at any rate, this guy was going over the Destiny 2 content vault situation that happened years ago. Now, as a Destiny 2 player, I don't really have a whole lot of room to talk on this because, not because of how long I played the game. I've got over 100 days worth of gameplay in the game. Those are 24-hour day cycles, by the way. Not just, oh, well, you played for 12 hours a day for this many days. No. That's total time. It's over 100 days worth of gameplay. So I know what the terms of service say about this, but I'm gonna kind of say something else too. In a lot of business practices, regardless of your contract, if something is seen as predatory or generally dismissive of purchase, you could still be tried for theft of services. And kind of got to go over that for just a brief moment. While Destiny's developer Bungie hasn't actually come out and said anything predatorily relevant to the situation, it's important to note that if it becomes a cycle or a pattern, number one, it looks bad for the consumer, but number two, it looks worse for the developer. It looks bad for the consumer because you're going to continuously complain about this thing and, just keep taking the abuse, basically. That does not make you look smart. Number two, it looks bad for the developer because you look scummy, and, I hate to say this out loud, but Bungie's already there. You could say what you want about the annual pass bundle, but the fact is that not everyone wants to buy the annual pass as soon as it comes out, which is when it's actually worth buying, not, halfway through the annual pass bundle. Some people would prefer just to pay for the seasonal pass, and the fact that your seasonal pass is, 1,200 silver, and you only allow an option for 1,000 silver, or 500 silver on the low end, or 1,500 silver and 20, and you don't have a season pass option, then you look scummy as heck anyway from a monetization standpoint, and that needs to be fixed too. But back to the Destiny 2 content vault, here's the thing. People like me have been playing Destiny 2 from day one, which means that we had access to the Red War. We had access to a lot of content that we bought and paid for, and we do not have access to that now. Now, in the terms and service, it says that this is to be expected, except there's just one small problem. Terms of service contracts do not protect you from liability for theft and criminal action, which, by the way, theft of service is a criminal action. That's the thing people don't realize. It's not just a civil action. When you pay someone for something and they take that thing from you, that is theft, regardless of what the TOS says. Regardless. Take it to any court of law, any judge will tell you that. Any lawyer will tell you that. And you could argue contracts all day. The reality is that theft is still theft. And plain and simple, if you're going to make Destiny 2 a free-to-play game, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to do that on top of removing the content that people like me paid hundreds of dollars for, you need to start eyeballing the possibility of refunds or some reward for being a Destiny 2 founder. Because if not, people are going to start abandoning your game like I did. 2-3 months ago, I actually just outright deleted Destiny 2 because the content cycle had finally gotten to the point where I realized just how far into the sunken cost fallacy I had gone. By the way, almost $1,000. That's almost $1,000 that I could have put towards a vehicle or a house or any other thing, So, where does that leave Destiny 2 in my eyes? Well, not in the unredeemable area. I will say that. There are things Bungie could do. Rewrite the original content and put it into a legacy mode where you can play the original version of Destiny 2's story in kind of like a weird tutorial-esque setting for new players to really experience the history of Destiny 2. I think that would be an applicable thing. The first raid could also be a part of that. And instead of just shuffling people off to this weird free-to-play, but not free-to-play because there's nothing really to play as far as the story goes, because it's all basically just seasonal content at this point. Make all your old legacy content available under a legacy engine and playlist that's still connected to the main map, but a little circle up in one of the top either left or right hand corners that says legacy content, and when you click on it you receive a notifier that says this will dramatically increase your file size on your game. You will also be brought back to dashboard because it will have to download this further content, and you have to go through the process of doing that. This is entirely free with the exception of the cost of your hard drive space. I believe that would probably be an acceptable medium for day one players like myself to have access to day one Destiny 2. Basically allow for a quote-unquote former server state access without having a former server state, because you could still run it right through the same servers that you're running, probably relatively easily actually, because you're literally just working off of the same stuff that you're using now. You're just allowing access to more content. But away from the remedy, well, not really away from the remedies, I think actually that's more the point here. It's not so much the theft of services regardless of the contract, because there is a predatory exclusion to terms of service contracts in any contract. If you are seen as being predatory, then you can kiss your TOS protections goodbye, because the judge could just throw it out and say, yeah, no, this is absolutely ridiculous, on like a moment's notice. And that's kind of what the problem here is. And it's not so much that I think that this should be done to Bungie. I think this is something Bungie needs to open their mind to and realize that there are these things called consumer protections in the United States, and as they exist, they're already hitting the gray line of going into the red as far as not being legit, and they need to really watch their backsides on that. Their legal department will sit there and tell them, oh, they're fine. Reality is they're not fine. They're hemorrhaging people. People like me who've played Destiny 1, loved it. Played Destiny 2, loved what I played of it, just wish there was more, wish we had access to a lot of the older content. I would actually like to see Bungie succeed in Destiny 2. I would like to see Destiny 2 either go on to be an amazing game or spawn a sequel, or rather, I don't know if you'd call that a sequel or a threequel or whatever the phrasing is. Again, this is before coffee moment. I want to see my favorite game go back to being my favorite game and proceed to be a better version of my favorite game, something that we have not gotten. And that's not just my opinion, by the way. That's the opinion of the player base that left, causing a, 40% drop in revenue and resulting in about 100 people being removed from employment at Bungie. That's not a small thing. That is a big thing. That is something that should be an eye-opening thing. Now, here's why I'm not going to criticize Bungie about the content of the Last Wish season. You were talking about a point in time that had to do with the people that were in there that were making poor monetization decisions over allowing for more content. And that's the problem. We've hit this point where they define your content as not even 2 hours worth of story and constantly replayable bounties and strikes and Gambit and Crucible and a new dungeon, and that's their idea of content. All right, let's go back a little bit to Destiny 1, where content was downloadable content that would last you pretty close to 10 to 12 hours. Now, I understand there's a price difference there, but let's stop and think about this for a hot second. We as gamers have literally, and I hate bringing this phrase into things, we've literally gone from a status where we are paying for content to a almost slave to the market of what they want to throw at us, because we want to use the sunken cost fallacy or call a game our favorite game. Well, at what point do you stop and realize your favorite game is turning from your favorite game into your favorite type of abuse? Because you're continuing to pay for it. And obviously there are people out there who pay for certain things that we're not going to get into here, but they do. But at the end of the day, you can argue and defend Bungie all that you want. You absolutely could. But there's a certain realistic point that the rest of the world does not see your defense of Bungie as legitimate. They see it as you just trying to shill for your favorite game or your personal sunken cost fallacy and projecting your own inadequacies as realizing that you got played for your money onto the rest of the world, because you just can't accept the fact that you got screwed. And that's all there is to it. And that's not on the rest of the world. That's not on me for making this video. I've come to terms with the fact that I screwed myself out of money by investing into a live service game the way that I have, or a game that actually I'm not even sure was supposed to be originally live service, but that's neither here nor there for this conversation. That's something we can discuss at a later date. Now, where does this fall on the terms of responsibility for the gamer versus Bungie? It's 50-50. It is. People out there would say, oh, it's yours because you're the one who paid for it. Well, yeah, that's true. But I paid for something on day one that I was expecting to be able to play consistently throughout the time of its lifespan when I bought it, regardless of TOS. Because, Destiny 1, you can still, if you start a new character, you can still play your intro mission. Destiny 2, you don't have the Destiny 2 intro mission. It's an easy moment, I think. Oh, excuse me. You don't have the original Destiny 2 intro missions anymore. You don't see the destruction of the previous tower, which led to the result of the new one. And by the way, if I was a new player, and this is something that I really wish Bungie would hear, but I know they won't. If you were a new player, right, and you wanted to start back at Destiny 1, and then you jumped over to Destiny 2 because you beat D1, right? And let's say you had the entirety of D1 as a box that you could play the whole story, 100%. That includes House of Wolves and the whole spiel. Alright, let's say you could. Well, you jump over to D2, well now you jump into a new tower that makes no sense as to why it's there. You don't understand that the previous tower had been totally wrecked by Gaul and his fleet. You don't understand that, you lost your light at some point and had to fight and struggle to get it back. There are things that you don't get anymore because of sunsetting, because of the Destiny 2 content vault. That is really my biggest gripe with Destiny right now. I also have a feeling that if you brought back the Destiny content vault, you wouldn't have people sitting there arguing about content in the game. They'd argue about whether the new content is worth it, but you wouldn't see people complaining about a content drought. Because if you stop and think about it, you complained yourselves that the file size was so huge it was borderline unmanageable. Alright, that's fine. That's acceptable. So how much of that was content, and how much of that was security and other stuff? How much of that was microtransactions that no longer exist? Or things that you're trying to slowly bring back anyway? Like, you just brought Titan back. I love Titan. Titan, back when Titan was freely available to those who bought the game in the first place, Titan was the place that I'd go run around in and camp my character out to fall asleep. Titan is the area that I used to find a non-existent, enemy, a non-enemy area without AI voices, and used to just listen to them waves. It was great. Alright? Listening to the background noises of Titan actually used to put me to sleep, and my daughter too. So, I like the fact that you brought Titan back. That's great. That is a good step forward, I think. Now you need to do Io, what we had of Mars and Mercury and all the other planets. In fact, while we're here, why don't we talk about doing Legacy Story or bringing Destiny 1 into the fold of D2 entirely and having an entire storyline that you can play in D2 as free to play. Or maybe not even free to play, just as a, oh, hey, here's a, $2.50 or $5 chunk of silver that you have to pay, and it gives you access to all the old content. These are all reasonable ideas, but you won't touch them because they're not profitable. They're not seen as profitable, rather. The problem that you're not seeing is that it is profitable because you're playing on nostalgia. Yu-Gi-Oh! And Konami do this all the time. How many reprints of Blue Eyes White Dragon have we gotten here in the last, 5 years? How many reprints of Dark Magician, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and deck supports for those older cards have we gotten from those? And people actually pay for it. So I really think you need to stop worrying about what the next new thing is and bring back the old stuff into the new fold. I would love to play D1's campaign, including House of Wolves, all the DLC, right straight through their stories, everything else, using the D2 engine. Even if you updated the health models and everything else to match it. The old D1 strikes where you had the Cabal dude who literally back in D1 used to be a giant health sponge that everyone complained about. Those complaints are now were at one point in time memes, and are now memories for people like me who loved every second of what you gave us back then. And now all we're asking for is a return to that kind of thing, but using the new engine and including it into the Destiny 2 fold. In fact, I'd actually argue that at that point, you could just fold D1 and D2 in together into a game literally just called the game engine for Destiny, which would work similar to Warframe, the way Warframe does theirs, instead of having, this situation where people have to choose between one or two in the selections, database, and actually you could probably just leave it the way that it is, but make D1's content available and playable through the D2 engine. And that would actually solve 90% of your problems. Albeit it'd open up probably another 50% of problems that you'd have to deal with, but that 40% of player complaints of not having access to materials that they paid for, yeah, that'd go out the window. Just totally out the window at that point. And I really do believe that it wouldn't take you guys as long as you think it would. I think complaining about it is probably taking longer than actually doing it at this point. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm not just talking about you guys doing the complaining, I'm talking about the player base too. Another thing, I saw on a couple of the YouTube channels that You guys tried to sell exotic weapons with what? A ghost shell and a sparrow and maybe one other thing in a $15 starter package. That's a terrible idea. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but that must have been some monetization monkey somewhere thinking that that's a great idea when it's not. That is a terrible idea. If you want to do a Destiny 2 starter bundle, alright, let's think about this for a minute. What would be good for a starter bundle? An EXP boost. You've already got the thing where you can get your character level up. That would be acceptable there too. Couple of free Eververse engrams as kind of a bonus topping. Not actually mandatory content, but just like an add-in thing. Maybe a couple of your more valuable cosmetics for for a specific class. You could say Titan starter bundle, Warlock starter bundle, Hunter starter bundle, and make it so people can just choose one for $15. And once you choose one, that's the only one that you get. All right. I think that would probably be okay. Maybe. The Sparrow's fine. Like, the Sparrow, the Ghost Shell, and the Emote, there's nothing wrong with that. Not at all. The problem that a lot of people had, and the reason that you got laughed out of the room with that, was because of the exotics. Number one, you tried to sell power in a game, using real money. You basically tried to RMT your own game. And, that's fine, I guess, depending on the game that you're playing, but I don't think the Destiny 2 community is really open to that. What they want is they want to work for their exotics. Like, they want to put in the time and have that thing that says, I earned this. I worked for this. And another before coffee thought on that note of earning things in a video game. Y'all do realize these are just video games, right? Like, their impact on your real world is limited to none outside of escapism unless you're streaming or making content with these video games. If you are using another person's content, like right now I'm supposed to be playing Survivalist, I'm just sitting here running my mouth because I haven't had enough coffee to understand exactly what I was doing in this game. Something about charcoal. Anyway, yeah, like, unless you're getting money from playing these games somehow, sponsored streams, making videos on YouTube, something, right? The bearing that they have on your day-to-day is extremely limited. Like, they're not gonna buy you a house, they're not gonna get you married, they're not gonna make it so you can have, maybe if you got rich like, some of these streamers are, then it might get you laid and might get to the point where you have kids or get married. That definitely is a possibility if you're doing that. But again, you have to be actively creating content on YouTube in order to make that happen. And by the way, it does not happen overnight. Any YouTube streamer or YouTube video maker, hell, I'll even drag in the other companies, Twitch, Kick, all these other places, even trying to monetize your stuff on Facebook, you will not get rich overnight. That's not how it works. Like, you have to be extremely lucky and extremely skilled. A lot of people like to say, oh, well, it's one or the other. I'd argue it's both. I think you have to be both in order to make it big on these platforms, especially in your first month. Like, it's just not going to happen. You need to be out doing more things with your lives. And that's just as true for me, too. Like, if I were to activate my other webcam and show you a side view of what I look like, you'd tell me I need to get off of my butt and go do some push-ups. Alright? I'm not gonna lie. I'm a chunky guy. Chunky dude. But the reality is this. We like to let the games dictate our day-to-day, I think. A lot of people do. And I'm not talking about your normies, which would probably be about a good 75% of gamers. I'm talking about the remaining 25% of us who dump 101 days worth of our time into a game, or, more in the case of some World of Warcraft players, acting like that's somehow going to be some big life achievement. Dude, go attend a church, find a religion, go out and serve your community somehow, do something. Alright? Make a video game. Make some money off of the industry. Don't just sit there consuming content. Like, there does come a point where if you overconsume content and not enough is generated, you have too much demand and not enough supply. And at that point, the industry will just start eating itself. So, like, yeah, I believe indie game developers are a good thing. I think the surplus of content that can happen from indie devs is an amazing idea. And I think it absolutely should happen. And I don't care what the big game studios have to say about that, because they want to make their AAA title games. Yeah, I got a question for you. Whatever happened to your S tier games? And I know people sit here and argue with me about this one, but what happened to your Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII? What happened to Crisis Core? What happened to the original 2 or 3 Halos that weren't in a collection, that you used to have to sit there on your computer and physically go through the process of earning things? What happened to these Origin games that were amazing? What happened to that quality of game? It's gone down the tubes. Like, the value is not there. We're paying more money for less value, and that's where that's what it boils down to. And you have to take that through another lens too, and that is gaming as a value on your day-to-day life is not even that impressive anyway. It's literally just an escapism, no different from alcohol or, any other mind-altering substance, or even some non-mind-altering substances like cooking and eating food for some people. It's just a way to get away from a problem that is still going to be there when you get done playing your game. The more you put off cleaning your house because you want to play that video game, the dirtier your house is going to get. You still have to get up once in a while and clean it. And that's just it. A lot of these people who get on the comments threads of videos like Asmon and the Yak Man and all this other stuff, when they bring up the point that, it's just a game, they act like it's not just a game because they've sunk so much of their time into it. And I'm targeting specifically the South Park World of Warcraft video when I bring this up. Because these are the people who have burned through like 3 gaming chairs in a year because they won't get out of the gaming chair. They probably have a microwave within like arm's reach of their gaming platform and a micro fridge freezer, and they probably go out shopping when their food stamps comes in because they're probably not holding down a job. If we're being honest, they probably have the big old obesity check mark on the reason that they're disabled too. And they put themselves that way, 90% of them. I'm not saying that there aren't people who weren't that way to begin with, and they just found an outlet in video games and a way to escape what was already miserable. I get it. I do. But, escaping helps mentally, but gets you nowhere physically and in the real world. What do I mean by that? Well, escaping mentally lets you refocus and try to rethink. The problem with video games is that when you play video games as an escape, you're not thinking about real life. 9 times out of 10, you're thinking about the game. Like, no joke. The better thing to do is to improve your situation in some way. In fact, I would argue that if you are a severe gamer addict, like you've played World of Warcraft for, I'm going to say, around 20 hours in a day, having to sleep into the next day by like 4 hours just so you can get a decent night's sleep, if that is your normal trend, then I would argue that you need to go out of your way to take 4 hours out of that game time and go do something with yourself. It doesn't have to be a job. I mean, I'd say it'd be a good thing if it was. But I'd argue that you need to go out and go for a walk. Go do something with a friend IRL. Do something with yourself. Sit-ups, push-ups. Go hit a gym. If you can't hit a gym, go find something you can do. You know, there are other games out there that are not video games that would probably do more for you mentally than video games ever could. Go learn how to play chess. You don't think you can expand beyond video games? Try going PvP straight up into chess against a real person. You know, you want to tout off that you know how to do all this meta stuff in places like, you know, World of Warcraft and whatnot. Okay, let's make an effort to try to revive the competitive chess scene and make it more mainstream again. You think that, you know, you're that smart? Well, let's see you play against the real pros. The people who have the rules embedded in their brain and know how to nail you to a wall within 10 moves on a chessboard. You know, people who know how to do this impressive stuff. Let's see, I legitimately say that, as in, let's see some of these World of Warcraft gamers, Destiny 2 gamers, all these people who want to sit there and say they're tactically superior because they play video games. Alright, go play chess against a pro. Go play a non-gambling version of poker against a pro. Literally sit there and play a freebie game where there's no money involved against a pro. See how long you last. I mean it. And when you lose, because you will, I'd argue you 90% of you will. When you do lose, improve on that skill. Improve to the point where you beat them on a person-to-person basis, and then use that to make money. Or, you know, make yourself happy. But here's the thing. We all, myself included, are guilty of one thing in gaming: spending too much time with it. And that, you know, that goes back to modern culture, too. Not just gaming, actually. Now that I've had a chance again on coffee to think about it, that applies to everything online. Dude, we still have people scrolling through Facebook at 3 a.m. in the morning, YouTube at 2, and then they jump on over to good old Pound Hound station because they can't, you know, they can't touch a woman or whatever at like 5 o'clock in the morning, or maybe they are with someone and they're being that despicable person. Or maybe they're just not getting any, so they're trying to outlet that way. At the end of the day, you know, this stuff isn't healthy. It really isn't. And obsessing over it the way that it is done, it's just not healthy at all. And that goes to the insomniacs too. Like, I get it, you can't sleep. Perfectly understandable. How much noise do push-ups make? How much noise do sit-ups make? How much noise do you make while doing squat thrusts? You know, the reality is that there are other things you can be doing. If you're into Yu-Gi-Oh, grab your Yu-Gi-Oh card binders if you're there in a quiet place and if you're with someone, or even if you're not. Look through your cards. Find one that might be worth a lot of money. Maybe make a couple bucks, or maybe it's something sentimental, so maybe go spend some money on getting a frame for it or something. You know, do something creative, do something different. Which goes to the conversation about metagaming, too. And this is going to be a long, like, multi-freaking hot take rant video, which most people probably won't even be watching. Oh, lucky rain. At the end of the day, you do need to do what's best for you. But I'm going to say a very controversial hot take. Most of the people who died from COVID were either overage or had other health factors attributed to their death. And one of those health factors was obesity and a sedentary lifestyle. You can say, oh, well, it's my lifestyle, it's how I want to live, all you want, and try to glorify being overweight. Reality is, being overweight sucks. I can't run as fast as I could, my breathing sucks, there are a lot of things that I can't do. Alright, and I oftentimes feel like it's slowing down my brain too, which I think it is. You know, no. You can't glorify something that is not healthy. And you can sit there and try to say, oh, it is healthy. No, it's not, dude. When you gain weight, your blood pressure goes up, your risk for diabetes goes up. You run the risk of having asthma or other lung-related issues. You have a higher risk of heart disease or, just heart failure. The more you weigh, the more your risks are. So sitting here trying to glorify that and tell me that I'm fat shaming? No, I'm not. I'm calling you on your BS because it's not fat shaming. It's outright saying, hey, most of the people who are overweight, like myself at 315 pounds, when I'm supposed to only be 200 pounds, I'm over 100 pounds overweight. It is not healthy. It is not beautiful. It is not good. It is bad. It is not something you should be doing. It is something you should be trying to fight against. Oh, well, I was born that way. Okay, so your genetics sucked. Genetics aren't everything. Work against it. If genetics were everything, I'd probably be in prison right now. According to my genetics say that I'm predilected to bursts of sudden and intense anger. Hey, guess what? My sudden and intense anger goes into my gaming or into other sources. It doesn't mean that I take it out on people or things that'll get me friggin' arrested. I'm not stupid. And that's what it boils down to is you're trying to justify your own laziness and stupidity. Don't sell me a bundle of turd and call it food. That's not acceptable. I think Asmund had that phrase. I don't know how Asmund said it, but he had it right. Don't sell someone garbage and tell them it's a good thing. Don't tell people being fat and overweight is a good thing, because it's not a good thing. It's not. And you could actually go to a million other studies that would support what I just said. 1,000,001. Hey, let's take it a step further. Let's go beyond your internal organs. Let's go to your joints for a minute. Do you know how much a high impact on your joints, how bad that is for you as a person? Because it's not good. It is not good at all. So yeah, get mad at me all you want. Get mad at whoever you want. That's your right. Sure. That's fine. But you're not going to strike me down because my point is valid. My point is valid. Being overweight is not healthy. I'm overweight. I have every right to say that. In fact, I probably have more right to say that than most people on this platform do. So, I mean, yeah. Come at me, bro. Try it. Try me for fat shame. Go ahead, try it. And see where it ends up. Because I guarantee you, number one, I'm not going to care. That's the first thing. Your opinion is not going to matter to me as much as you think it's going to. Number two, I am fat. Which means that I have had to deal with a lot of people giving me the look. And you know what the look is if you're overweight. If you're not overweight and you're defending someone who is, shut up. Literally, you have no room to talk. You have no experience of being overweight. You don't know what it's like. Shut up. Yeah, and that's the first thing I have to say to you. Your opinion does not matter. And that I think is the other thing too that is actually a problem with the paradigm is that if you're not overweight, your opinion doesn't matter because you don't know what it's like to be criticized and ridiculed publicly for being overweight and how bad that can be sometimes. Like you feel like there is no way to fix it. Now me, I went the inverse and basically looked at everyone who called me fat and told them to shove it, that I didn't care what they thought. When they said that I'd never get laid or never be with anyone in my life, oh, newsflash for you, I got 2 kids. Well, 1 kid. The other kid, pretty sure might be mine, but we'll leave that personal trauma out of YouTube. But, look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, you're not going to get on these platforms and say things that aren't true and not get called out for it. Now, see, people like me, you could call me out 15 days to Sunday, or Monday, or Tuesday, or whatever. It's not going to matter much. Not so much that I don't read my comments section. I sit here and personally evaluate what personally these comments or criticisms. I am the one who allows them to affect my channel, my person, and how I do things. I willfully make the decision to let them affect me. Otherwise, they don't. And that's kind of where it boils down to, is this: you can criticize me all you want. If I don't see your criticism as valid, then I'm not going to accept it, nor should I. Nor should anyone else. But I think there's a fine line between accepting valid criticism and telling everyone to just screw off. Now, when people told me that being fat was unhealthy, I acknowledged that that was an acceptable criticism, because it is. It is. I wish I knew what these things were for, if anything. But the thing that you're not going to be able to do, and you'll never be able to do with me or any other human being, is make them think a certain way because you want them to. Unless you have really good data to back it up, and even then, sometimes it's still not gonna happen. Mostly because half of the time when you say something, people don't care. And when they do care, you have to be very careful about what you say, because you could push them into not caring, which is what happened to me. I actually used to be really small, really thin. Like, really, really, really thin. Almost to the point where people thought it was unhealthy. And now I've put on so much weight that I'm on the opposite end of actually being unhealthy. Like, I don't just sleep at night. I wake up in the morning and I feel like I swallowed a big old thing of sand, because I probably have sleep apnea, and I just won't go to the hospital because I already know what the problem is. The problem is I have to lose about 50 to 100 pounds. Because I never had this problem back when I was 240 pounds. I'm having this problem now that I'm 315 pounds. You know, that's really what it is. And being overweight is on a slider. It is not a, you're always going to be overweight or morbidly obese. It's a sliding mechanism. The more weight you put on your body, the worse things get for you. And that is not just something that I'm just saying either. That is backed up by scientific fact. Look at every study done on overweight people from the 90s and early 2000s, the 80s, the 70s, and even the 2010s. This whole fat shaming thing was not originally meant for people to say, oh, well, being fat's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. No. It was because we had people with genetic conditions that were being bullied to heck and being treated like garbage because they were overweight and they had no way to control it at that time. Well, we've had medical breakthroughs and, other sociological and psychological breakthroughs since then that outright show you that this is not a matter of being true. It is actually a lie that being overweight is beautiful. It is a lie. Being fat's disgusting. Are you kidding? And even if you're into bigger people, you know what I say when I say there is a class of bigger people that do not take care of themselves, and you cannot approach them because it's just like walking into a 2000 and, let's pick year 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh! YCS tournament. You know the smell I'm talking about. And you'll never be able to undo that without losing weight and without adjusting the way you think. Now, bear in mind, these people, they do this stuff and they think there's nothing wrong with it. Alright, that's fine. I'm more or less in the same boat. I do what I want, and everyone else be damned if they don't like the way I do it. That's their problem, not mine. Well, that's fine, but there are consequences to that choice. And the fact that people are not willing to accept the consequences of their actions is more a problem here. See, they think they know the consequences, but they don't. And that's really what it is. Like, you get onto a website, where, I don't know, let's make one up. Feederism.com or some BS, right? Where it's all about women getting chunky and showing off their goods on the internet, right? Well, you're appealing to a specific niche. You're not appealing to the overall general public. You're also not appealing to your doctor, who is probably going to sit there and tell you, yo, what you're doing is not safe or healthy for your body or your mind. And they're right. And you don't want to hear it, so therefore you think you're entitled to go against, decades worth of medical knowledge that says being over a certain weight is not healthy. Did you people do understand that even the military has the system, right, where you actually have in the military a system that tells you that you're physically unfit for service, right? Like, you do understand that. That's not just me making it up. That really exists. And sitting here complaining about your life, right? Like, alright, I had to check my audio, make sure it was working for a second there. You do understand that that's not prejudice. That's because of fitness for duty standards. I can't go into the military because I'm over 100 pounds over my weight. If I were to get back down in shape, I'm not even sure they'd take me because of my age, but, like, you realize these things exist for a reason. You can't get on an elevator that's rated for 1,000 pounds if you're 2,000 pounds. That's hyperbolic, but it's true. These things exist not only for your safety, but for the safety of others. And whether you care about the safety of others or not is irrelevant, because others care about their safety. You can have your thoughts about yourself all that you want, but the moment you start to negatively affect the majority, oh God, especially when it's the majority, when you go up and you do something that is against the majority of people, and it is publicly, openly, like, borderline violently against them, and you do something that gets you in trouble, and they don't like it, and they start not liking you, that's where this stuff kind of really, you learn. You'll learn where your place is quick. And, a lot of people like to sit there and say, oh, well, the left has done riots and burned stuff to the ground, and they're a minority, and yada, yada, yada. That's true, they are a minority, and they have more or less gotten away with it. How long do you think that's going to last? And I do mean that. These kind of things don't last in a perpetual nature. Not at all. At some point, you're going to have a conservative governor, a conservative president, or maybe even just a conservative police, sheriff, and district attorney and judge that throws the book at someone and absolutely wrecks their crap. They try to make a point that rioting is protected under the First Amendment and the right to, the freedom of assembly, and then they take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reminds them that it has to be nonviolent, and burning down buildings is violence. So therefore, they're not protected. Once that happens, guess what? That's when they get their hands slapped for getting in the cookie jar, and they start to learn, and that's the way that it is. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take these people getting sued into oblivion because they destroyed people's lives, they destroyed homes, and they actually killed people, which, by the way, regardless of your view on free speech, is illegal. I mean, it is absolutely illegal to kill someone. You can't do it. You're not supposed to do it. I'd even say, on a religious angle, 90% of religions on the planet hold it as an immoral thing to kill someone. Some take it a step further and say animals are on that list too, but, that we're not going to go there. No, it's just back to the main points. You're not going to get away with it for long. You might get your year or 2 or 3, maybe even 5 or 10. but you will not see the other side of the expiration date, basically, where they say you can't be charged for it after a certain amount of time, especially on killing someone. You're not going to see that. The law already says you're not, because there is no statute of limitations on murder. I don't care what state you're in. Even if you are in a state, the feds can take it up, and given the right president, it could happen to you. It very well could. And you need to understand that that is a risk that you took on yourself when you did these things. And when the consequences come to bite you, okay, once all this BS outrage that really shouldn't have existed in the first place because it was mostly created by a bunch of hate mongers or a bunch of liberal white kids with nothing better to do with their time, you're going to realize your mistake. You will. And people like me are just going to sit there and let it happen because you were warned not to before you did it, but you did it anyway. So, I mean, yeah, that's just the way that it is. Well, I think that's going to do it for the before coffee thing. There's probably a couple more things I could have thrown in here, but I think 50 minutes of me rambling on a live stream is more than enough for people to watch, but, you know, basic rules of life. Don't try to sell someone a pile of turd and tell them it's gold. Don't claim something is healthy when it isn't. I don't care how it looks on the social standpoint. That's not even the point. The point is medically it's not healthy. And you know what I'm talking about. Stop trying to go against medical advice that's been planted in fact for decades. Okay? You're not going to find the 350 pound person whose body is whose body weight is approximately 50% or rather 40% body fat and tell them that they're going to fly. It's not going to happen. You're lying to yourself, you're lying to them, and you're doing them a great disservice and the world a disservice by saying these things are okay. Alright? Now, that being said, I don't think it's okay to bully these people either. That needs to be touched on too. Like, bullying, it regardless, needs to end. But I also think to a degree, like, when you bully someone and you get bullied back, a measured approach. A very measured approach. Just to make them feel what it felt like so they don't do it again, I would argue would be moderately okay. But there's going to be people out there who disagree with that because they don't agree with consequences for actions regardless of what the actions are, because it's just that their brain just doesn't function apparently. You know, yeah. I think it's time that we start calling these things out as we see them, and I see it as this. I am overweight and unhealthy. I do play my video games too much. I am a small YouTube channel that just started less than a month ago. I probably should be doing more with my life, and actually my channel would probably be more entertaining if I did. I'll straight up admit to that. I'm boring as hell. Boring as hell. I know it. I'm well aware of it. In fact, this channel's probably not going to get any views. It's probably not going to get nothing. And I accept that. I am taking a chance at something. Maybe not putting my best effort in, but it is still a chance. And I'm aware of that. And that I think is kind of where it is. You know, I'm not so much using this as a money generator at this point. This is not my point to this channel. If it was, I'd be very careful as to what I said, and I wouldn't choose video games as a niche. I probably would have gotten a business course and started a channel about doing like taxes and what else is there? Stock investments and how to look at certain things being purchased at a store and what brands to look for. That would probably be something that would get me money. And actually, on that note of advice, hey, stop worrying about being able to afford stocks at this point. Stop looking at how much it costs. Start looking at what your friends and family are buying for brands. It's a good place to start. Because if your friends and family are consistent in their brand purchase, that money is going to constantly be there. A little fun nugget of information. You know, there's a good chance that if that brand is bought by about 5 strangers in the store, if you go into a store and your top ramen is always sold out, you need to invest in top ramen. If you go into your store and you have a hard time getting a bottle of ketchup, not because of supply, but because every time they get a supply, every mother and father out there who eats hot dogs, hamburgers, and other unhealthy stuff that basically requires ketchup to eat it, well, guess what? You need to look at the Heinz Kraft Company or the Hunt's Tomato Ketchup Company or something along those lines, because that's where you need to start looking. Don't look at Tesla. Don't look at Boeing. Although if you have the money to do Boeing, I'm sure you probably already have. You know, start looking at the stuff that people buy around you. Most of the people that I know play on the Xbox. If I wanted to get into the video games and entertainment investing, I'd probably look at the Microsoft stocks and see how they fluctuate and how much they cost a piece. I own a Nintendo Switch, which is what I'm playing on right now. Hee. You know, literally. Oh no, my stream froze, or I paused it. No, I paused it. You know, just you know, look at those 11, 12 to $20 Nintendo stocks. You know, look at PlayStation. If you're into PlayStation, if you're into PC, pick your poison as far as PC manufacturers: IBM, HP, Gate. I don't know if Gateway's still a thing, but Gateway, if they are, you know, Asus, Republic of Gamers. You know, look into these companies and look into investing into them. Ask the big questions. How much does a stock or share cost? Because yes, it does cost you a lot of money to get to the point where you can live off of your stock dividends. It does, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you're not going to get there if you don't start doing it. And that's where I'm at with my YouTube channel too, is you're not going to get there if you don't start somewhere. Probably my first 30 videos are going to suck horribly. And this is definitely going to be one of them. You know? I am at the point in my YouTube development where my content sucks, and it's going to suck. I know it is. And I am slowly, one thing per stream is changing. I have altered the way my camera sits. I've tried to improve the lighting, which I'm going to work on even more. By probably getting some nice LED stripping across my desk. You know, things that can change and improve the stream. I'm probably going to diversify my content beyond just video games, but into stuff like maybe even archery. I have a target, I have a bow. I'm probably going to miss my target every time, but you know, that's fine. It's something for people to watch. You know, that's the thing I think people forget when they make these YouTube channels. They like to focus on the money and forget about the origins. Like, straight up. A lot of people out there credit Asmon when they first started watching him for his easy-to-watch World of Warcraft videos. That's a great place to start. Do game walkthroughs, man. Go back to your old Legend of Zelda games and just bust out a bunch of game walkthroughs. If you're into music, like you have a guitar and a sound recording setup, bust a couple rhythms that make people enjoy it. You know, make some new music on YouTube. Put it on your channel. Get your paycheck that way. There is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. In fact, I'd argue it's what YouTube is probably here for. It's probably why the monetization exists in the first place, to inspire and push people to create art. People like me who sit on our butts ranting and raving and playing video games probably wasn't designed for that. I'd actually argue that Twitter's probably more better for that, or more better. It's probably the best place for that. Facebook, maybe even, but not YouTube. I really don't think this kind of content has a place on YouTube. Not really. I mean, I'm just doing it because I have the platform, and, you know, kind of wanting to see what it can do, using it as a test flight system for, some of my ideas and some of my um, setup, and see how it looks on the other end. This is literally like your first 100 videos are trying to find your niche. And, there are people out there who do more than one niche. Heck, Asmon is predominantly video games, but he also does React content, and probably even a couple other things. Heck, we've even seen him do a couple videos about stuff that he makes for himself to eat. That classifies him as being in the cooking niche, too, or trying to appeal to it. And he's gotten the attention of some really, really big YouTubers like Guga Foods, I believe I'm saying that name right. The steak guy who's all about the sous vide. Love his channel. Some of this stuff gets a little boring sometimes, but how many times can you cook a steak before people get tired of watching you cook a steak? But it is YouTube. I could be wrong about that. I very well could be. I'm also appreciative of his channel too, because I've learned a lot of things from watching his stuff, and that's, I think, more what we need to focus on is teaching people things. And you're not going to teach anything. You're not going to don't get in the mindset on YouTube. This is a dangerous thing for channels like mine. The mindset that we're going to do something unique or new. It might happen, but don't bank on it. Do not bank on it. It is the death knell of a new channel, is thinking that you're going to post something someone hasn't already done. If you stopped and looked at how much content was actually on YouTube, you're never going to do it. You're not. I remember when I was a kid, I used to have dreams of doing something for a website that used to be called stupidvideos.com. It was one of the places that hosted the video of the penguin slap thing, where the penguin got knocked into the water hole, basically. I used to have it in my head as a kid that I'd record me or one of my friends doing something so stupidly funny that I'd be able to edit it and put it on stupid videos and be the next big person on the internet. It'll never happen, alright? That's not how it works. Number one, that's just not how it works. It takes work. It takes hard work. Mr. Beast probably even scripts his videos to every action, It's not as simple as landing that perfect video the first time. You're never going to land a perfect video the first time. And Mr. Beast's advice, as far as, come back to me after 100 videos, was accurate. You need to have at least 100 videos under your belt before you are able to do anything. And that's not just videos either. That's true for live streams. The more time you put into it, the more you improve the situation, the more likely you'll be to succeed. And that's really what it is. Heck, at some point, this chair is going to disappear. I'm not going to be in this blue and tan, disgusting floral mess. I actually want to get a nice, comfy gaming chair that's going to go right here, and I'm probably going to modify it to have my mouse on my right-hand side, my keyboard attached to the chair on my left-hand side, and just have it, done up the way that I want it done. I might even make it so the keyboard is detachable and the mouse station is also detachable, so I can go back to just having a good old armchair, so that way I can maybe relax, watch some Lord of the Rings, watch some Jurassic Park, go back to those first 6 Star Wars movies, and stop watching people dog on Disney and just go enjoy actually what we already have. Because we actually already have quite a bit, and that's kind of the point to a lot of this is stop being mad at what you don't have. Be happy with what you do have, but try to improve on your situation. And if I could time edit live streams, I would probably go back in time and delete 90% of this video and just leave it to the last 10 minutes. But that defeats the purpose of a before coffee stream. Before coffee, I don't game much. I ramble on about stupid stuff. I cuss and I swear, and counter to what I believe. I cuss and I swear anyway. And a lot of people like to sit there and say that's counter to what I believe. But I'm going to refer back to Brad Stein for a minute. Jesus Christ called the Pharisees sons of snakes. Tell me that's not a cuss back then. Tell me that's not swearing. You know, when the Bible says cursing is evil and wrong, they don't mean swear words. I hate to burst your bubble, but they're actually starting talking about real curses, like condemning someone to death, condemning someone to damnation. That's what they're referring to. Or some other type of suffering or ailment. They're not talking about the basically, F off, which is basically the non-polite way of telling someone to leave you alone because you're done listening to them. I mean, that's not swearing. That's telling someone to leave you alone. And if they've gotten you to the point where that is, what you're saying to them, then I'd say they've probably pushed you a little too far. And they need to understand that. But they won't, because, people are people. But probably going to make this a once-a-week thing. I don't think this kind of video is going to get really too many views. I'm not going to lie. This is not really going to be a daily thing. If it was, I'd actually have a probably coffee side chat sort of thing. Where, where we'd invite guests or whatever. Which would probably happen once I got, more views to the channel than just what I have. It's a good idea. It's something I've been considering. Just some general ideas about the stream, along with archery, maybe a little bit of GunTube content to kind of show off, price tags and show people, you don't have to be a billionaire to own a gun, you don't have to be a billionaire to own a car, you don't have to be a billionaire to own a home. And if you have family that has extra land that maybe they want to reduce their tax burden by, selling you on the DL and on the low price, a chunk of land, you might consider it. If you have that resource, you might consider it. We're in a point in this world where I think now more than ever it's important to get with your family. Even if they're your adopted family, actually, it's important to go back and understand and remember that these are not just people, they're active resources that are also people and exist in your life, and you need to cultivate those relationships. Not only for your own personal benefit physically, but also mentally, spiritually, and other metaphysical ways that, that exist. It's important to do good things for your family. It's also important not to let your family walk on you, because they're still people too. They'll do it. They will do it. There's a little saying, family does you first. And I modified that because, it is true, but it's a very brutal aspect of life. Family is usually the first one to do you wrong. And that's how you learn that these things are wrong in the first place, is by family. Don't believe me when a lot of people like to use the whole, Santa Claus isn't real, blah, blah, blah. Well, alright, okay. So, let me ask you something. Did you have the good, positive experience of family and all this other stuff? Did you enjoy that because you were lied to? Or did you enjoy that because it offered you a flight of fancy that your parents put the time and money into for you to enjoy as a child? Stop and think about that for a minute. Anyway, I'm going to leave it right there. I think that's going to end the stream for the day. Until around 3 o'clock. Try to get on Remnant 2 and do some more. I was going to be on last week, but I felt like crap. I still kind of do. And we had new appliances being put into the house, and it was just grocery day. It turned the day into a madhouse, so I just didn't even have a chance to even look at the setup. So